Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our open forum on racial equity and authenticity, hosted by the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community. I'm Jason Levine, Administrator of Counseling, Health, and Wellness for Winchester Public Schools. Tonight, we welcome our speaker, Cindy Weeks Bradley. Cindy has also had the opportunity to work with many of our teachers and staff in some of our professional development within our schools. Let me share with you a bit about our special speaker for tonight. Cindy Weeks Bradley was born in Barbados. She immigrated with her family to America in 1980 and was raised in Dorchester, Mass, attending Boston Public Schools. She has over 20 years of school-based experience within teaching and leadership, spanning from early childhood education through post-secondary education. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts with a major in sociology and minor in child psychology from University of Massachusetts, and a master's in teaching from Simmons University. In addition, has attained a professional certification in urban leadership from Harvard University's National Institute for Urban School Leaders. Her talents and gifts support the growth of staff, students, families, as well as our communities through the process of seeking deeper knowledge, distributive leadership, equity, racial equity, and creating authentic shared spaces for real learning to take place. Please join me tonight in welcoming our very special speaker, Cindy Weeks Bradley.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Dot. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Maura. And thank you to the Winchester community for having me, for showing up, and for participating this evening. As Dot has said, this will be recorded and you will receive a copy of it. And Maura will be running behind the scenes for me because I'm good at a lot of things, as you heard, but I'm really not good at running the technology that well. As you were told, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You don't have to hold back. Feel free to use the chat, pop it out, raise your hand, whatever works for you, because we want to bring a community feeling to tonight, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable in any way. So feel authentic enough to be yourself. And we'll start the PowerPoint. This is how we start, a community growing together, Winchester. When I spoke to the coalition and I spoke to Jason, we met several times and we said, what would we want to bring to you guys tonight, and you ladies and everybody else that's out there? So you have to correct me every time I say you guys, like put up an emoji with I don't know, a thumbs down or something, like correct me, because I was told that it is not a kind thing to say, and I'm still working on me. So as you can see, I'm working on me. I'm bringing my true me. I want you to bring your true you. So if it pops out that I say you guys, I'll try to correct myself real sneaky. Call me out. Don't let me do that. So I just want to start there. Tonight, we want to talk about growing a community, falling and learning together. And we just wanted to say welcome. We thought about how to say welcome. I unfortunately only speak one language, but I thought that if I found a little hard with other languages saying welcome, I could be inclusive as possible. I don't know what any of those languages are, but welcome. We'll start with a small video, and I want you to think about why are we here tonight? What do we want for Winchester? And what do we want for our community as well as our home? So think from inside, outside, outside, inside, and keep that going the entire way. The first video is by Michael Jordan. It's Know Your Why. And I just think it's important for us to ground ourselves in that before we go any further. So very short video, we'll show that and then continue.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now, right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Let's go. Now. Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
Jason gave a very eloquent, example of who I am, but then there's who I think I am versus all those little accolades that kind of get me in this space, but I don't like to talk about too much. Here's how I like to talk about myself. And I want you to think in this context, who are we as in who are you? So who am I? I may be all those accolades, but in conjunction with that, I am a mother of 3 kids and a farm, and I do use the word farm loosely. I have 5 chickens, 3 dogs, and 2 cats. No fish yet. A small little smart garden that's grown in my garden, in my kitchen. And that's pretty much me. A wife, a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a niece, a networker, mentor, former teacher, former school-based educator, children's advocate, human advocate, current education equity consultant and strategist, associate lecturer at a local university, and very creative person. I was born in Barbados, as he said. We immigrated to the States in the 80s. My entire education has been in the city of Boston, from all the way from elementary school, way to college, and all the work that I'm doing. My unique lived experience have landed me here with you today. And I think if I didn't go through all that I've gone through, and if I didn't learn the way that I learned, and if I didn't continue my education and all that good stuff, I wouldn't be here today. So I just know that I'm here because of my entire journey. All right, so you're probably looking at this like, what is this? And I can tell you where I'm from, everyone loves it. But I look at this like, what is this too? So this particular meal right here is a dish from Barbados, and it's called Cuckoo, C-O-U-C-O-U. It's made with cornmeal. It's made with okra, some spices, and they stir it up. And then they add some sort of stew, beef or fish. Here you see some fish, which is indigenous to Barbados as well. And I just want you to take a second right now to either pick up a phone and text, to call someone or to journal and just talk about a quick little tradition that you are in love with. Like, I say that because my grandmother loves this dish. Cindy hates this dish. So everyone doesn't stick to traditions in their families, but think about a tradition that you absolutely cannot ever let go, and just take about 1 minute to talk about it. Text someone, call someone, or if you're in the room with a family member, just put it on mute and speak to them for 1 minute and share that tradition. And here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2. Stacy, are you the first? Thank you so much. Okay, if you DM me, I'm not going to say your name, but there is this Polish Easter egg called, and if I hope I don't say it wrong, Pisaki. Correct me if I said it wrong, but I hope I said it right. And every year without fail, this particular egg dish is made, and you can do this better than me by telling, but that is a love and a tradition. Observing the Sabbath on Friday. Okay, let's see what I'm going to scroll back up and just start reading. All right, my family has no traditions, but I make oh, yes. Okay, so sometimes when you don't have traditions, you just make up your own. And you know what? That's the authenticity of nature. You just do what you need to do to feel good. It doesn't matter. I'm glad that you did that. And then we have, all right, there's the Christmas tree and observing the Sabbath, as I said, and snowstorms, French toast with chili. Hey, wait, how do you say it? You said challah bread. I need to come to your house, Marianne, when it snows, okay? But you'll have to pick me up because I don't drive in the snow. I'm a little scary like that. I'm British and we always have mince pies, and I know a mince pie very good because I'm from Barbados and they do a lot of British meals. Matzo ball soup, yes. My family tries to perfect our tradition. Oh, so what do you do? How do you make that brisket? Please put it in the chat. I've been looking for a new recipe and I am horrible with brisket. Is there anyone that wanted to talk at this time and share a tradition? One more tradition, let me see. Having my husband read. Oh man, this person likes having their husband read. It was the night before Christmas to the kids, no matter how old they get. I love it. Okay, one more. Okay, so now everyone wants to participate. You use the slow cooker and a lot of onions. Oh, what do you do in the slow cooker with a lot of onions? Are you using beef, fish, vegetables? Onions are my favorite. But what else are you using in the slow cooker? Lots of onions are used. Tell me about that dish, Jess. All right.
Oh, should I talk about the brisket?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Go for it.
So it was my grandmother's recipe, but she can't make it anymore. So my parents and I have been trying to perfect that recipe since, and we try to improve it every year, and we put a lot of vegetables in it.
Oh, thank you for sharing. What do you know what seasonings you mainly use? Like salt, pepper, thyme, I don't know.
We use salt and pepper, the basics, but I think we use a lot and I lose track of them.
Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Thank you for being brave tonight and speaking out, okay? And that's the thing, leadership is usually done by youth. So thank you for being a youth leader tonight and speaking out. I appreciate it. So there are gonna be a few housekeeping rules, and I totally appreciate you sharing, and we're gonna care together. I want you to be present. I don't know why I'm telling you this, because you've been present the entire time from what I can see, even with your laughter and the chat. Trust this process. Sometimes it's going to feel, or maybe not, feel a little wavy. If it does, don't worry about it. Just trust the process. Personal stories shared in this space stays in this space, unless you have explicit permission to share. And I got that from my mom, like outside of her door growing up, it was like, when you come here, what you see here, when you leave here, let it stay here. So that goes for here. Let it stay here unless you have permission. Okay, the coalition will have to call me back for this one. Judgment-free zone. I learned this one really from Planet Fitness, trying to go to the gym, judgment-free zone. I was like, yes, didn't work out, still working on it, work in progress, as I said, but Planet Fitness, this is a judgment-free zone. Fall forward, face your fears, embrace your hopes, and at the end of the day, act, because actions create transformation. Okay, so here's the tough thing now. So you're going to go back with your videos off, mute on, and you will take the Harvard IAT. I will drop it in the chat right now. And if it does not come in as a live link, just copy and paste. What this IAT is going, and you are going to do, I'll put it in the chat as well, RACE, the race IAT. So you will see plenty of IATs. You'll see gender, you'll see religion, you'll even see colorism. But the one that I want you to go to, you will see disability. The one that I want you to go to is the race, like the color of your skin, like that kind of race. So you go to the race IAT. It should take about 15 minutes or so. Some people go a little faster. Some people will go a little slower. It's okay. I want you to, yes, thank you very much. I want you to go at your own pace, okay? And just tune into what I'm saying. If you need a little bit more time, don't rush it. Just follow the pattern. I will drop the link one more time because we also put in a few other things. I will put 15 minutes on my clock. I will leave the journaling up because when you're done, I want you to journal. Think about how this made you feel. Did you, do you agree? Do you disagree? You don't need to share anything. This is a private moment, totally private besides those that you're sharing it within your home. Videos off, volume off, IAT on. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I will have the chat open. Don't you worry about it. If you did not finish, keep going. You don't have to stop. You can simply just listen to me as I go and make sure that you feel comfortable. My friend Doc said, do we all get A's? You got an A just for showing up. When you complete the IAT, you'll see there's no right or wrong, but it just tells you a little bit about how you might be thinking at the time. It doesn't mean that's who you are through and through, so don't take it too personal, but just take it in a way is right now in this moment, this is perhaps probably how I, am processing things. And what will I do with this information? That's up to you. I just wanted you to be aware of any of the potential implicit biases that you might have. And then you can begin to develop ways to really wrestle with them, work with them. And if you want to, of course, you can wrestle with them, work with them and become better at it. Or you can say, you know what, I love what I got and I'm good. Your choice. That's why I said it was private. And I didn't want you to share because I want that to be your business and your journey. And when there is a time to share, you can feel free to share with us. And I just want to say thank you all. Anything you want me to know right now, drop it in the chat so we can turn up this energy. Anything at all. I have to leave. Oh, okay, bye. Someone left. I didn't understand the last portion of the test where I was asked to use E and I. So actually they don't tell us exactly why they want you to use E and I, but I'm assuming that they want you to move very quickly. And the quicker you go, the more you're going to instinctively answer that question. So I cannot remember exactly what happens at the end. And don't you worry about it because you can do this as many times as you want to do this. I will complete the study with my full attention. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate it. I really do. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask right now. Keep dropping it in the chat, communicate with each other. Here we go. Remember when I talk about that cuckoo that I can't stand, that my family will stand in line for on a Friday while my 92-year-old grandmother, so by the way, it's a wooden spoon, like a little paddle, maybe about 12 inches long, and you use this wooden paddle to like turn and stir this delicate meal that they all love that I don't love, okay? So let's get past that. So here we're talking about traditions again, and what I wanted to talk to you about or share with you was the history of Aaron Huey's life on an Indian or a few Indian reservations, Native American reservations, excuse my language, a few Native American reservations, and who Aaron Huey really is, a phenomenal photographer. So if you ever have an opportunity, you can Google him and find out more. But I found myself digging a little deep into not just my own history, but also American history. And Aaron Huey gave me a few connections that I wanted to share with you tonight. It's about 15 minutes long, so please bear with us as we watch. Feel free to turn your videos off. You do not have to stare at me the whole night. Whatever makes you comfortable is safe.
I'm here today to show my photographs of the Lakota. Now, many of you may have heard of the Lakota, or at least the larger group of tribes called the Sioux. The Lakota are one of many tribes that were moved off their land to prisoner of war camps, now called reservations. The Pine Ridge Reservation, the subject of today's slideshow, is located about 75 miles southeast of the Black Hills in South Dakota. It is sometimes referred to as prisoner of war camp number 334, and is where the Lakota now live. Now, if any of you have ever heard of AIM, the American Indian Movement, or of Russell Means, or Leonard Peltier, or of the standoff at Oglala, then you know that Pine Ridge is ground zero for Native issues in the US. So I've been asked to talk a little bit today about my relationship with the Lakota, and that's a very difficult one for me, because if you haven't noticed from my skin color, I'm white, and that is a huge barrier on a Native reservation. You'll see a lot of people in my photographs today, and I've become very close with them, and they've welcomed me like family. They've called me brother and uncle and invited me again and again over 5 years. But on Pine Ridge, I will always be what is called Washichu. And Washichu is a Lakota word that means non-Indian, but another version of this word means the one who takes the best meat for himself. And that's what I want to focus on, the one who takes the best part of the meat. It means greedy. So take a look around this auditorium today. We are at a private school in the American West, sitting in red velvet chairs with money in our pockets. And if we look at our lives, we have indeed taken the best part of the meat. So let's look today at a set of photographs of a people who lost so that we could gain. And know that when you see these people's faces, that these are not just images of the Lakota. They stand for all indigenous people. On this piece of paper is the history the way I learned it from my Lakota friends and family. The following is a timeline of treaties made, treaties broken, and massacres disguised as battles. I'll begin in 1824. What is known as the Bureau of Indian Affairs was created within the War Department, setting an early tone of aggression in our dealings with the Native Americans. 1851, the first Treaty of Fort Laramie was made, clearly marking the boundaries of the Lakota Nation. According to the treaty, those lands are a sovereign nation. If the boundaries of this treaty had held, and there is a legal basis that they should, then this is what the U.S. would look like today. 10 years later, the Homestead Act, signed by President Lincoln, unleashed a flood of white settlers into native lands. 1863, an uprising of Santee Sioux in Minnesota ends with the hanging of 38 Sioux men, the largest mass execution in U.S. history. The execution was ordered by President Lincoln only 2 days after he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. 1866, the beginning of the Transcontinental Railroad, a new era. We appropriated land for trails and trains to shortcut through the heart of the Lakota Nation. The treaties were out the window. In response, 3 tribes led by the Lakota chief Red Cloud attacked and defeated the U.S. Army many times over. I want to repeat that part. The Lakota defeat the U.S. Army. 1868, the Second Fort Laramie Treaty clearly guarantees the sovereignty of the Great Sioux Nation and the Lakota's ownership of the sacred Black Hills. The government also promises land and hunting rights in the surrounding states. We promise that the Powder River country will henceforth be closed to all whites. The treaty seemed to be a complete victory for Red Cloud and the Sioux. In fact, this is the only war in American history in which the government negotiated a peace by conceding everything demanded by the enemy. 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. It began carrying, among other things, large numbers of hunters who began the wholesale killing of buffalo, eliminating a source of food, clothing, and shelter for the Sioux. 1871, the Indian Appropriation Act makes all Indians wards of the federal government. In addition, the military issued orders forbidding Western Indians from leaving reservations. All Western Indians at that point in time were now prisoners of war. Also in 1871, we ended the time of treaty making. The problem with treaties is that they allow tribes to exist as sovereign nations, and we can't have that. We had plans. 1874, General George Custer announced the discovery of gold in Lakota territory, specifically the Black Hills. The news of gold creates a massive influx of white settlers into the Lakota Nation. Custer recommends that Congress find a way to end the treaties with the Lakota as soon as possible. 1875, the Lakota War begins over the violation of the Fort Laramie Treaty. 1876, on July 26th, on its way to attack a Lakota village, Custer's 7th Cavalry was crushed at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. 1877, the great Lakota warrior-in-chief named Crazy Horse surrendered at Fort Robinson. He was later killed while in custody. 1877 is also the year we found a way to get around the Fort Laramie treaties. A new agreement was presented to Sioux chiefs and their leading men under a campaign known as Sell or Starve. Sign the paper or no food for your tribe. Only 10% of the adult male population signed. The Fort Laramie Treaty called for at least 3/4 of the tribe to sign away land. That clause was obviously ignored. 1887, the Dawes Act. Communal ownership of reservation lands ends. Reservations are cut up into 160-acre sections and distributed to individual Indians, with a surplus disposed of. Tribes lost millions of acres. The American dream of individual land ownership turned out to be a very clever way to divide the reservation until nothing was left. The move destroyed the reservations, making it easier to further subdivide and to sell with every passing generation. Most of the surplus land and many of the plots within reservation boundaries are now in the hands of white ranchers. Once again, the fat of the land goes to Washichu. 1890, a date I believe to be the most important in this slideshow. This is the year of the Wounded Knee Massacre. On December 29th, U.S. troops surrounded a Sioux encampment at Wounded Knee Creek and massacred Chief Bigfoot and 300 prisoners of war using a new rapid-fire weapon that fired exploding shells called a Hotchkiss gun. For this so-called battle, 20 Congressional Medals of Honor for valor were given to the 7th Cavalry. To this day, this is the most Medals of Honor ever awarded for a single battle. More Medals of Honor were given for the indiscriminate slaughter of women and children than for any battle in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, or Afghanistan. The Wounded Knee Massacre is considered the end of the Indian Wars. Whenever I visit the site of the mass grave at Wounded Knee, I see it not just as a grave for the Lakota or for the Sioux, but as a grave for all indigenous peoples. The holy man Black Elk said, "I did not know then how much was ended. When I look back now from this high hill of my old age, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch. As plain as when I saw them with eyes still young. And I can see that something else died there in the bloody mud and was buried in the blizzard. A people's dream died there, and it was a beautiful dream." With this event, a new era in Native American history began. Everything can be measured before Wounded Knee and after, because it was in this moment, with the fingers on the triggers of the Hotchkiss guns, that the US government openly declared its position on Native rights. They were tired of treaties. They were tired of sacred hills. They were tired of ghost dances. They were tired of all the inconveniences of the Sioux. So they brought out their cannons. "You want to be an Indian now?" they said, finger on the trigger. "1900, the US Indian population reached its low point, less than 250,000, compared to an estimated 8 million in 1492. Fast forward, 1980, the longest running court case in US history, the Sioux Nation versus the United States, was ruled upon by the US Supreme Court. The court determined that when the Sioux were resettled onto reservations and 7 million acres of their land were opened up to prospectors and homesteaders, the terms of the Second Fort Laramie Treaty had been violated. The court stated that the Black Hills were illegally taken and that the initial offering price plus interest should be paid to the Sioux Nation. As payment for the Black Hills, the court awarded only $106 million to the Sioux Nation. The Sioux refused the money with the rallying cry, "The Black Hills are not for sale." 2010. Statistics about Native population today, more than a century after the massacre at Wounded Knee, reveal the legacy of colonization, forced migration, and treaty violations. Unemployment on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation fluctuates between 85 and 90%. The housing office is unable to build new structures, and existing structures are falling apart. Many are homeless, and those with homes are packed into rotting buildings with up to 5 families. 39% of homes on Pine Ridge have no electricity. At least 60% of the homes on the reservation are infested with black mold. More than 90% of the population lives below the federal poverty line. The tuberculosis rate on Pine Ridge is approximately 8 times higher than the US national average. The infant mortality rate is the highest on this continent and is about 3 times higher than the US national average. Cervical cancer is 5 times higher than the US national average. The school dropout rate is up to 70%. Teacher turnover is 8 times higher than the US national average. Frequently, grandparents are raising their grandchildren because parents, due to alcoholism, domestic violence, and general apathy, cannot raise them. 50% of the population over the age of 40 suffers from diabetes. The life expectancy for men is between 46 and 48 years old, roughly the same as Afghanistan and Somalia. The last chapter in any successful genocide is the one in which the oppressor can remove their hands and say, "My God, what are these people doing to themselves? They're killing each other. They're killing themselves while we watch them die." This is how we came to own these United States. This is the legacy of Manifest Destiny. Prisoners are still born into prisoner of war camps long after the guards are gone. These are the bones left after the best meat has been taken. A long time ago, a series of events was set in motion by a people who look like me, by Washichu, eager to take the land and the water and the gold in the hills. Those events led to a domino effect that has yet to end. As removed as we, the dominant society, may feel from a massacre in 1890 or a series of broken treaties 150 years ago, I still have to ask you the question, how should you feel about the statistics of today? What is the connection between these images of suffering and the history that I just read to you? And how much of this history do you need to own even? Is any of this your responsibility today? I have been told that there must be something we can do. There must be some call to action. Because for so long I've been standing on the sidelines, content to be a witness, just taking photographs. Because the solution seems so far in the past, I needed nothing short of a time machine to access them. The suffering of Indigenous peoples is not a simple issue to fix. It's not something everyone can get behind, the way they get behind helping Haiti, or ending AIDS, or fighting a famine. The fix, as it's called, may be much more difficult for the dominant society than, say, a $50 check, or a church trip to paint some graffiti-covered houses, or a suburban family donating a box of clothes they don't even want anymore. So where does that leave us? Shrugging our shoulders in the dark? The United States continues on a daily basis to violate the terms of the 1851 and 1868 Fort Laramie treaties with the Lakota. The call to action I offer today, my TED wish, is this: honor the treaties, give back the Black Hills. It's not your business what they do with them.
Thank you for watching attentively. Thank you for paying attention. And I hope that if you needed to take a break, you found yourself doing so. What I will say now is I just want to go back to my grandmother and that cuckoo and talk about impact, right? So, as I said, my grandmother makes this dish that I can't stand. When I was young, I had no choice but to eat it. About 16 years old, everybody's waiting in the kitchen for this dish to be done. And I am in the kitchen sitting down because it's the first rebellion I'm going to have. I am not eating cuckoo ever again. I don't care what they have to say, punish me. I'm not putting it in my mouth. So everyone's getting their bowl, they're getting the food, blah, blah, blah. It comes my turn. And I did not get up. I just stayed sitting. And my grandmother said to me, well, Cindy, well, I'll say it in the accent and then I'll say it in plain American English. So she goes, Cindy, well, what's going on? She said, so Cindy, what's going on? And I said, well, I really don't want cuckoo today. I really don't like it anymore, but it's okay. Like, I'll eat the meat. Like, that was the thing. I'll eat the chicken. It was the chicken. And my grandmother took one look at me and began to cry. And thus I am still eating cuckoo at the age of 45, right? So I don't really eat, I don't really eat it, but I take it because I don't want to hurt her feelings. So I want you to think about impact. The impact of denying a tradition can be often hurtful, right? But the impact of embracing a tradition can be also something that makes others feel well. And there's this great balance between the two, right? So how do you respectfully do that? And I'm not going to go there. I will just say to Winchester, after tonight, I want you to think about the impact. I know that there's a touchy conversation going on within your district as far as in your town, as far as the school mascot. I showed you that video on purpose. I could have showed you any video in the world. I'm showing you this video. The first time I showed it, just to let you know the history and impact and why some people might want to move away from it, but some people might want to hold on to it because of tradition. And as a town, you have to make that decipher on what you're going to do. It's not Cindy's town. I'm just a visitor. I'm being respectful, but that is something as a town you have to come to grips with. The impact on both ends. One for the future, one for the past that you bring into the future. How can we meld the two of those instead of doing something totally different? And with that, I will stop there. So this is like the fun part. Now we get into the nitty gritty. So most of you, I hope, and if you don't, it's okay. You will know after today, Kendi. Ibram Kendi is a phenomenal as far as I'm concerned, person that is leading the anti-racist movement right now. He is brutally honest, but he is brutally thoughtful in his honesty. So if you have not read the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, please do so. I have a sociology background. The first chapter, I can tell you, I cussed Kendi out. It was a Black woman group we read the book. But he's saying Black folks, on and on and on. But because I was in a book club, I had to read the second chapter. By the time I read the third chapter, I read the whole book, okay? So I didn't even wait for my book club. I was ahead of the game. And there's a specific place where Kendi begins to talk about his friend who was, I believe it was Haitian, his Haitian friend. And when he went over to his Haitian friend's house and how he felt, he didn't quite feel welcome. And I connected because as a West Indian, when my American friends came to my house, my mother used to be like, Americans in the house, but she allowed it. So just think about our impact, think about microaggressions, think about how we move through the world, and think about how we can be kinder to everyone we meet, as well as acknowledge that there is a systemic problem going on right now, and we are contributors, and we can contribute in a way to help resolve the issues, or we can contribute in a way to continue to perpetuate the issues. So just food for thought right now. We'll have a chance at the end to discuss a little more. And if you're really, 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 really burning, pop out or go into the chat. So for me, I like to go through steps like, okay, what are some great things that we can do? Okay, cool, we got it. What's next? What's next is I want you to engage in vigilant self-awareness if you haven't already. That is the reason for the IAT. When we begin to know ourselves, when we begin to think about our own implicit biases, and we all have them. I started off with you guys, right? Implicit bias. I shouldn't be saying that. I was told it was offensive. I tend to correct myself as soon as I can. If I don't, I ask you to hold me accountable. So vigilant self-awareness. I am aware now that it is offensive and I shouldn't say it, but because I've said it all my life, as far as I know, like it's difficult to break it, and I'm trying every day. So figure out who you are and work with who you are, love who you are. next, and change who you are if you do not like who you are. Acknowledge racism and the ideology of white supremacy. So once again, it's not about white people. It's really about a culture, a systemic culture. It's not about an individual. It's not about a group of people with white skin. It's about a systemic issue that we're talking about. So that is the ideology of white supremacy, not the Ku Klux Klan, okay? Like, acknowledge that racism exists, acknowledge there's a structure that keeps people down, and if you can acknowledge that, perhaps you can begin to change that or impact in a way that helps the entire society and just not a small privileged portion. Study and teach a representative history, as I just showed you with Aaron Huey, who is a photographer. His experience touched deeply into American history. Whether we agree or disagree, we can always find a counter narrative. But however, I try to show you a different side of American history than is normally represented in our schools, K-12 school system. So study and teach a representative history. Talk about race with students. So you should talk about race with your children. You should talk about race with students if you're a teacher, because I'm not sure who exactly my audience is, but don't think the children aren't having the conversation. They're having the conversation. So you know that other conversation that parents don't like to have, but we need to have? Okay, add this to the whole thing. You now have to add race to that conversation so your children understand what you mean, so your students understand what you mean, so your children know where they're going. The expectations are very clear, and all youth know how to treat one another. I was recently working with another community, and one of the things that came out was just youth voice, youth voice, youth voice. And it was amazing to me that when the youth spoke about the adults, it wasn't as negative as when they spoke about their peers. So pay attention as well as to what's going on with their peers when it comes to race, and assuring, that is such a powerful quote. Thank you. Thank you. And just assure that you are tuned in and you are listening. I was speaking to one of my mentors the other day, and I said to her, I'm so happy. I think it might have been yesterday or today. I'm so happy I have children that are, I have kids that are in their 20s, right? I'm so happy because they keep me young and fresh. Your students, your children can keep you young and fresh. So please, please, please talk to them because they're talking about it. Lastly, I'm only going to give you 5. Kelly, once again, thank you so much. I'm only going to give you 5, right? We went through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5th one. When you see racism, do something. And you don't have to do it like Cindy. Like, I'm bold. You wouldn't even believe how shy I am. Like, I'm super shy, believe it or not. I got this whole introverted side nobody knows about. But yeah, so you don't have to do it my way. It may just be a conversation. It may be, a text. It may be a quote. It may be something. It may be a gesture. But do something about it. Don't stay there. What I found that as I traveled throughout Massachusetts, especially, how many people are paralyzed by silence. Don't be paralyzed by silence. It will not be easy if you're not accustomed to it. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you become. So I do this little dance, and Dot liked my dance. So I said if I felt like it, I was going to dance for you tonight. I'll tell you this. When I was younger, because I'm a lot older now and I don't know how to dance that well, but when I was younger and I wanted to be hip and, just get into it. And when I step out on the, you could tell my personality, right? So when I stepped out on the dance floor, all eyes needed to be on me. However, I didn't want to miss a move. I practiced in a mirror. So if you need to practice, talking in the mirror, like you heard something today and you didn't address it and you want to address it, practice. Practice in the mirror, practice with your loved ones, practice with a teddy bear, practice with your dog. Like my dogs dance and laugh because I talk to them all the time. So practice, practice, practice until you feel comfortable enough to go out there and do it with confidence. And this piece is going to be a piece where I want you to drop it in the chat, drop 1 in the chat after you take some time. So I'm gonna put my trusty clock back on, right? Trusty clock. 3 minutes on this clock. In 3 minutes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to individually write about your desire or desires to support anti-racist work. Please, in this 3 minutes, include why this work is important to you and your family. Be sure to capture at least 3 ways. Not 1, not 2, but 3. So join anyone in your house in this conversation. Use a text or a call as a lifeline if you must. But listen, what I need you to do is write 3 ways that you and your family can work together to support the ongoing commitment to anti-racist work. So we know what we're doing in the schools, and the schools had a very similar PowerPoint. I just catered it more towards the community with a lot of the community pieces. So the schools had those same 5 steps and they needed to do their own work. So now what I want you to do is some of that work. 3 minutes on the clock, we'll leave this prompt up. You can turn your videos off and your mute off. And when you're done, simply just write one in the chat, one of the 3 ways that you're committing to the work with your family. So I'll read a few. One that I received, it is a work that starts in the home and changes at a generational pace. So how might we disrupt that work? Like I had to disrupt the cuckoo, and obviously I failed at it because I'm still taking it, whether I eat it or not. So how do we disrupt that work? Just a thought. It is important to me and my family because human beings are what matters most in life. Excellent. And how might you spread that word? Talk about how people of all races are essentially the same in terms of how they feel. And another one came in and just took me away, but really thinking about the similarities and the difference of people beyond their skin. And I think that's what was that particular person was getting at. I appreciate it. Find more effective ways to encourage change at my child's elementary school, to welcome people of all backgrounds more effectively. So one of the ways that you can do that is by just totally, 3 minutes is up, totally engaging, continue to engage. And the good thing here is I go around and I gotta be honest with you, I don't have a community to speak to. I'm normally speaking to schools. Very few communities contact me to do work. So you have community people here that are supporting the work, as well as someone here that's supporting the work at school. And then you have me here today, as well as other people that came through. So begin to lean on that to help form a straight home to school alliance. When I hear Jason, this is something that's important to Winchester Public Schools. So make sure that your voice is heard and your agency is there when you go into schools. Continue to educate myself and my kids on what racism really is. Thank you. Change Winchester's zoning. Someone's getting into zoning. Let me go back to that one. Change Winchester's zoning so that it is more consistent with fair housing laws. Very nice. You went deep with it. Taking the epidemic and race courses. Yes. So someone else is going to find out more information, learn more, become stronger. Also share it with your children, go to the schools. I love it. It's coming in. Continue to educate yourself. So the bottom line is we are now going to take steps as humans, right? We're all humans. So we are now going to take some steps after today to assure that we are supporting Winchester and the Winchester community and the Winchester Public Schools and our own homes in a way that's conducive to growth. Okay, so as you read all this and you give me my accolades and you do this and you do that, make sure tomorrow and tonight you go out and you support anti-racist work. Okay, work towards getting my child's school to change their mascot. So someone else is saying the mascot needs to change. Like I don't live in Winchester, so I don't have a say in it, right? I don't have a say in this at all, but you all have a say in it. So say what you have to say. The repercussions of racism and the systems that hold it are felt everywhere, and the impact of all aspects of life. It is felt everywhere. And I can tell you as a Black person, it is felt from the time I wake up in the morning. If I turn on my television, so I don't hardly watch TV. When I'm at work, it is felt. If I go to the supermarket, the minute I walk off my property, that is what it is. My privilege of being Cindy Weeks is lost, and my Blackness takes precedent when I am outside and no one knows who I am. So you are absolutely right. Once again, all I can say is thank you, and I appreciate you for being honest. I appreciate you for being candid. I appreciate you for making a commitment. I appreciate you for bringing your children in. I appreciate you for thinking about the school, and I appreciate you for thinking about this like one community and not just individuals trying to make it. I'll continue to talk with my family about race, heritage, yes, family history, Japanese American, incarceration, yes, call out microaggressions or racism toward any fellow persons. And I will tell you, Now you can call out racism, you can yell, scream, holler, blah, blah, blah. Then we, the people that are being offended, will look like fools, right? But if we were to just have an intellectual conversation and let people know sternly, like, I don't like when you do that. When you said that, it hurt my feelings. This was the impact that caused. And really sharing your video is off. So all this time I've been talking to my, you didn't see my dance? Wait a minute. John, did you see my dance? Because I did do my dance, okay? Because I need you to see my dance.
I did not see it. Please do it again.
All right. So when you are practicing how to say it, because it's not often easy to say. Like when I went out when I was young, I had to get my dance on. So I still got my little moves, right? I got my moves because where did I practice? In the mirror. Practice, practice, practice. That's all I'm going to tell you. John, did you see my moves just now?
I did.
All right, very good.
It was good.
Maura, next slide, please show us the dance. Next slide. So Netflix and chill. So here it is. I have these young children, the pandemic, well, they're a little, 23, 22, and 19, right? Pandemic set in and they're like, what do we do? Okay, I got a little privileged life. We got a movie room. So I said it to the movie room and I said, you got a Netflix and chill. And my kid said, oh, Mom, you shouldn't be saying Netflix and chill is not what you really think. I said, well, that's what it's going to be. So for tonight, this is what it's going to be. Netflix and chills means we are going to be looking at shows that really expose us to different lifestyles. And I sat with one of my friends and we really went through a bunch of Netflix shows. Like, what really matters? What do you think will help? Blah, blah, blah. Vetted it. And here you have our list. 13, The Fair of the number 13, Teach Us All, When the Levees Broke, Strong Island, A Long Walk to Freedom, The Khalif Bauer Story, Eyes on the Prize. That is actually PBIS, and I watch that from first grade to 5th grade every year, Black History Month, John Marshall Elementary School in Dorchester. Waiting for Superman and Freakonomics. And if there are more, please, please, please drop it in the chat because I don't have all the answers. We can educate each other. We can lean on each other. So if there are any shows, I just watched a show on Netflix called Orthodox last night. I don't know anyone that saw it, but what it did make me understand, I looked at it from a cultural standpoint. If that is your culture, like Barbados, like it doesn't matter what this accent is, like I'm a Bajan, okay? This is assimilation. I had to do this to survive somewhere along the line. When I think about my culture and I thought about the culture of the young lady in that documentary, that it wasn't a real documentary, it was more like a show. I kept continuing to say like the strength that she had to break out of a culture, to break out of a tradition, to break out of all of that and still stand firm was like so amazing. See, I'm still eating cuckoo, and the lady in that show, she went to Germany somewhere. She said, I have to like try to get out of my, yes, someone else says it's amazing. So if you haven't watched it, please watch it. It had me just sitting down. Tonight, I will be sleeping early when I get off of here because I was up all night watching that. All right, next slide, please. And once again, drop it in the chat if you have any. It comes to books, right? And I said, well, let's increase our library. Like, let's really talk about history. Like, let's really think about it, right? If you don't have any of these books right now, I'm not telling you go out and buy them all. That's like, this ain't a college class. That's too much. But think of one book you can read on this list that can really help you understand youth today, especially youth of color. While we work on ourselves, that's fine, but we really need to work on ourselves for youth because they're the future. So Kendi's Stamp from the Beginning was a bestseller, so that is definitely one. How to Be an Anti-Racist. I told you about Kendi and my little book club. I had a whole fit in the beginning. Someone said Midnight in Broad Daylight. I am not sure what that is. If that is a movie, just text me and just drop it in the chat, or if it's a book, let me know. Midnight in Broad Daylight just came through the chat. All right, so books recommended by Cindy for adults: How to Be Anti-Racist by Kendi, Race Matters by Cornell West, Other People's Children by Lisa Delpit, Multiplication is for White People by Lisa Delpit, Young, Gifted, and Black, Teresa Perry, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? Read the book and find out. Mindset by Carol Dweck. And if you're not interested in schools at all, just be interested in your mindset. Carol Dweck does a good job as far as I'm concerned. Culturally responsive teaching in the brain. If you're an educator, please read that. Letters to a Younger Brother. One of the things I thought about when I spoke to Jason was even in schools, what can young people read, especially young boys? What can they read to really represent and understand other people and other people of color? That happened to be a book that I had. It could even go into a book club. The only book on this list that I recommend for youth is Letters to a Younger Brother. The others, parents, you would have to recommend it. Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Wow, the other day I called him Alec Baldwin. I must have been sleepy, but it is James. The Triumph of Consciousness. Oh, that is such a great book. I got into that by accident, and I still have it. I have an original copy, and like I said, it was accident, by Martin Luther King Jr. And The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Wilson. When you start to think about just the narratives within all of those books, you start to get a different sense of what is going on in other people's lives and how you could potentially relate to those lives if you don't have friends and things like that. So this gives you an opportunity to read and practice in the mirror. That's what you do. I hope you saw me dance again, John, right? Yeah? Is he gone?
Yes, no, I'm here.
Thank you. Maura, next slide, please. All right. So some online resources and just really trying to get into what is going on in society, this whole race thing, like figuring out what is real, what is not, what we were told, what we weren't told. I can tell you my journey, and your journey will definitely not be my journey because you're a different individual. But in my journey, I found that there were so many untruths that it was painful, right? I had to relearn a lot of what I already learned. Then I had to sift through that learning to make meaning of it for myself. Then I had to practice, right? Implementing it before I was even able to come and talk to people about it with confidence. So it didn't happen overnight. I didn't just wake up like Cindy, like, yay, let me go to Winchester. No, it took a very long time. So don't you worry about it. Just stick with it, and here are some resources. Next slide, please. Because more resources. And what's really important here, I put these ones by themselves. You have our implicit bias, as well as the implicit bias video by Verna Myers. I love that video. So if you have an opportunity, you will have a copy of this PowerPoint. As far as the resources go, I would love to hear what you think about Verna Myers' video, especially when you think about your IAT results. The two of those together, marvelous. And it is time for action. I don't have to say that anymore. The reason I don't have to say that anymore to you all in Winchester, see, I didn't even say you guys. See, I'm getting it. Okay, so the reason I don't have to say it to you all right now is because you've been doing it so beautifully all day. Like from the time we started, you've engaged, you've dropped it in the chat, you spoke, I don't know how many lifelines you used, but I know that you were very engaged, you did the IAT. So I just want to say really thank you. And your exit ticket is next. Here you go. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to journal, think, reflect, create, right? Really just read through this and think about what you're going to take away from tonight. Write it down. Or if you don't feel like writing, once again, text a friend, call a friend, use a lifeline. But use this time to really do that. I really sincerely thank you for being here. I sincerely thank you for hanging out to the last minute, even though I know some of you go to sleep pretty early. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your thoughts. And I do appreciate that if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. You got Dot, Maura, and Jason, who were like, you got to come here, and I'm here, and whatever you need. Figure them out, you figure me out, you figure me out, you figure them out.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's been
You're welcome.
evening, a really wonderful evening. Thank you.